Louisville, Kentucky. And as a local will be quick to tell you, it's not Louisville, and it's not Louisville, it's Louisville. Some may know it as Derby City, Fall City, the Gateway to the South, River City, Bourbon City, the Ville, or the 502. Louisville is the largest city in the great state of Kentucky. Famous Louisvillians include Muhammad Ali, Jack Harlow, Diane Sawyer, Jennifer Lawrence, and Hunter S. Thompson. Louisville is a large Midwestern city located on the southern banks of the Ohio River in Kentucky. As of the 2020 census, Louisville had a city population of 633,045, a metro population of 1,362,180, and a combined statistical area population, which includes large portions of southern Indiana and the Elizabethtown, Kentucky metro, of 1,487,749. Louisville is perhaps most famous for the Kentucky Derby, making Louisville Slugger baseball bats, having one of the largest districts of Victorian homes and buildings in the United States, the Speed Art Museum, Kentucky's largest and oldest art museum, or for hosting Thunder over Louisville, the largest annual fireworks display in the entire world. The city's importance as a shipping and cargo center goes back hundreds of years and is primarily due to its location on the Ohio River. Today, that legacy continues as UPS's Worldport Global Air Freight Hub is located at the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. Additionally, Louisville is located at the crossroads of three major interstate highways, I-64, I-65, and I-71, and remains an important city to the truck transportation industry. The city is also home to Humana, one of the nation's largest health insurance companies. The food and beverage industry plays an important role in Louisville's economy as well. Papa John's, Long John Silver's, Texas Roadhouse, and Yum Brands, owners of Kentucky Fried Chicken, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut, are all headquartered in the Louisville area. And of course, Louisville is also a major center of American whiskey, with over 1/3 of all bourbon production coming out of Louisville. For sports fanatics, the city is home to the University of Louisville Cardinals, the Louisville Bats baseball team, Louisville City FC Soccer Club, and the area is home to Valhalla Golf Club, which hosted the 2024 PGA Championship. Today, the city is the 24th largest in the United States by land area and 28th by population, though it is important to note that the city of Louisville merged with Jefferson County in 2003. But why did Louisville become one of the largest cities in the American South and Midwest? What fueled its growth? Well, let's take a look at the city's history. But before we get to Louisville's history, I'd like to remind you that if you enjoy the content we create, please like, comment, share, or subscribe. Any and all support is greatly appreciated and really helps the channel out. Evidence suggests that the area that later became Louisville has been inhabited by humans as early as 1000 BC. However, when European explorers and settlers arrived in the area, there were no permanent Native American settlements. Instead, the area was used as a hunting ground by the local Shawnee and Cherokee tribes. The site where the city of Louisville sits today is located on the border of Kentucky and Indiana on the Ohio River. When European explorers first arrived to this area, it was mostly a swampy floodplain near the river. But, as fate would have it, Louisville won the geological lottery. You see, for the entire length of the Ohio River, from Pittsburgh to where the Ohio River unites with the Mississippi River, there's a singular set of rapids that makes traveling the Ohio River by boat a dangerous endeavor. These rapids, known as the Falls of the Ohio, are located at roughly the midpoint of the Ohio River where Louisville is today, and were formed by erosion to the riverbed's Devonian limestone rock shelves. Following the French and Indian War, the state of Virginia was searching for land grants to pay off Virginians who had served in the military during the war. In 1773, Governor Dunmore of Virginia authorized Captain Thomas Bullitt to organize a party to survey parts of northern and eastern Kentucky. In that same year, while traveling by the Ohio River, Captain Bullitt and his group of explorers reached the Falls of the Ohio, and Captain Bullitt laid out a site for a town that later became Louisville. Years later, in 1778, during the American Revolutionary War, a Virginian colonel named George Rogers Clark was sent by the governor of Virginia to disrupt and destroy British military outposts that were located on the northern side of the Ohio River. Clark and his men used the Ohio River to gain access to the interior of the United States and eventually arrived at the Falls of the Ohio, as Captain Bullitt had years earlier. Clark, his militia, and 60 settlers traveling with him decided to set up a settlement and communications post on Corn Island, an island in the middle of the Ohio River upstream of the rapids. The following year, in 1779, settlers from Corn Island crossed the Ohio River and set up the first permanent settlement on the Kentucky side of the river. They named this settlement Louisville, in honor of King Louis XVI of France, who had greatly assisted the American colonist cause in the Revolutionary War. Today, George Rogers Clark is considered the founding father of Louisville. In 1780, the Virginia General Assembly and then Governor of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson, approved the town charter of Louisville, and Jefferson County, the county that Louisville sits in today, was named in his honor. Later, in 1803, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, brother of George Rogers Clark, met in Louisville to plan the Lewis and Clark expedition in order to explore and claim lands in America's vast West after the Louisiana Purchase. As large numbers of American settlers began moving west from the east coast of the United States, many used the Ohio River as the east-west highway to get to the interior of the country. All of these boats traveling down the Ohio River had to stop at Louisville to unload their cargo and transport it by land to the other side of the Falls of the Ohio in order to continue their journey down the river. Louisville was a portage town. As riverboat traffic on the Ohio River increased, jobs increased, the population increased, and institutions of governance increased. By 1828, the settlement's population had grown to over 7,000 people. It is important to note that the current of the Ohio River flows north to south, from modern-day Pittsburgh to the Mississippi River. In the late 1700s and early 1800s, river travel was one-directional, as most people used flatboats or keelboats and essentially floated with the current downriver. However, this all changed in 1815 when the Enterprise, captained by Henry Miller Shreve, became the first steamboat to travel from New Orleans to Louisville, showcasing the potential of steamboats to travel upstream to deliver people and goods. Louisville would become one of the leading manufacturers of steamboats in America during this time period, and in 1830, the city completed the Louisville and Portland Canal, which allowed boats to circumvent the Falls of the Ohio and travel from Pittsburgh to New Orleans without having to unload their cargo. In 1848, Zachary Taylor, a son of Louisville, was elected the 12th President of the United States, and by 1850, Louisville had grown to America's 10th largest city. Also, 1850 was the year when the Louisville and Nashville Railroad was founded. This railroad would grow into one of the largest railroads in the United States, offering travel and shipping between Louisville, Nashville, St. Louis, Memphis, Atlanta, and New Orleans. The railroad operated for over 132 years until it was purchased by the Seaboard Coast Line Railroad in 1971. When the American Civil War broke out in 1861, Louisville became a major stronghold of Union forces. President Abraham Lincoln, a Kentuckian himself, made it a priority to keep Kentucky in the Union, famously saying about Kentucky's strategic importance to the Union's cause, "I hope to have God by my side, but I must have Kentucky." Although the city was never attacked during the war, because of its location on the Ohio River and because of its railroad network, Louisville became an important staging point for many Union military operations during the war. Years after the conclusion of the Civil War, the first Kentucky Derby was held in the city on May 17, 1875, at the Louisville Jockey Club, which later became known as Churchill Downs. The city was a natural fit for the horse race, as central Kentucky and the Bluegrass region had a strong tradition of horse breeding throughout the 19th century. 10,000 spectators gathered to watch Aristides win the first Kentucky Derby. During the 18th century, African Americans played a vital role in Louisville's growth and economic prosperity. In antebellum Louisville, enslaved African Americans worked at the river port and in the city's warehouses. The area also served as a point of escape for fugitive slaves fleeing the American South, as the city lies just across the river from the free state of Indiana. Following the Emancipation Proclamation and the Union victory over the Confederate States in the Civil War, Louisville, like many other American cities at the time, passed racially based residential zoning codes that restricted where African Americans could live. However, this ordinance would be resisted. In 1915, African American resident William Warley, an attorney and president of Louisville's NAACP chapter, tendered a purchase offer on a lot in a predominantly white neighborhood in the city as a test case to challenge this racially based city ordinance. This case, Buchanan v. Warley, went all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, where the court, in a unanimous decision, found that Louisville's ordinance violated the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment and was therefore unconstitutional. The case remains one of the most significant civil rights cases in American history. Following America's entry into World War I in 1917, Louisville was selected as the site of Camp Zachary Taylor. This training camp was one of the largest in the United States and trained over 150,000 soldiers, including American novelist F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'd venture to guess this is why Fitzgerald mentions Louisville several times throughout The Great Gatsby. In 1937, Louisville suffered one of the greatest natural disasters in the city's history. In January of that year, over 19 inches of rain fell around Louisville, and the Ohio River reached a height of 57 feet. The flood submerged 60 to 70% of the city, and 90 people died. As a result, the city dedicated itself to building major flood mitigation projects, and to this day, the event is still known as the Great Flood. During World War II, Louisville was a major center of war production for the American military. Part of Louisville's airfield was converted to a manufacturing plant where Curtiss Wright manufactured C-76 and C-46 cargo aircraft. After the war, this factory was sold to International Harvester and altered to manufacture tractors. During the 1960s and 1970s, Louisville, like most industrial American cities during this time, experienced suburbanization and deindustrialization. Newly built freeways in the city gave commuters and car owners great access to the city's suburbs, where new houses were being built. Local manufacturing declined, and certain areas of Louisville, such as the West End and South End, were particularly hurt by this reduction in industrial activity. However, in the 1980s, Louisville began to reinvent and revitalize itself. From the 80s to today, the city has invested substantial amounts of money in things to improve the lives of its citizens. Some examples of this include Waterfront Park, the KFC Yum Center, the Lynn Family Stadium, and Louisville Slugger Field. The city has also transitioned its economy away from its traditional reliance on industry to other areas such as healthcare, education, logistics, and tourism. I've visited Louisville many times and would recommend others do the same. Aside from all the attractions, I think one of Louisville's unsung heroes is its incredible city park system. Louisville's park system is one of only 4 examples in the United States of a Frederick Law Olmsted completed park system. In 1891, Olmsted initially designed Cherokee, Iroquois, and Shawnee parks, and the 15 miles of tree-lined parkways that connect them. Ultimately, Olmsted and his successor firm developed plans for 18 charming parks, which exist throughout the city today. Louisville is a city with many things to offer its citizens and its visitors. It is growing, and it is vibrant. It is a city of rich history and a city whose future looks bright. So let's all raise a glass of Kentucky bourbon and make a toast of goodwill to the Derby City, one of America's great cities.